Sometimes presence is compared to listening, and that is an analogy one can use, and Jesus used to describe it to people so they can experience it who have no idea what you're talking about. So when you are trying to teach it to your mother or your children or your dad or your grandparents or whatever, or your uncle or aunt, to say, what's all that nonsense? You can say, if you're listening, if you're trying to catch a very slight noise, what state would you be inside if you were very intent listening, trying to catch the slightest noise that's arising? What inner state would you be in? And then let's try it. You can practice with your children. It's a game. It's a wonderful game. Can we listen to the slightest? What noises can you hear? Let's say you're out in nature and there's very subtle noises. What noises can you hear? And then they go, okay, but you have to get still, otherwise you won't know. So you get still, and then you go, okay, listen very carefully. Okay, and then they go, of course they're not thinking then. You can't think and listen very carefully. And they might hear noise. Oh, I can hear that. Okay, anything else? They listen again. Oh, now I can hear that. Okay. And so you're putting this person, whether it's a child you're doing it with, without them knowing it, you are actually putting them into a different state of consciousness simply by asking them to listen very carefully. Because you cannot carefully listen and think at the same time. Presence needs to be consciousness needs to be reclaimed from the thinking function, and it's all because all that consciousness is required to go into the auditory perception. So consciousness is reclaimed from thinking and then flows into auditory perception, and so you experience that you have a choice of where you want your attention to be. You don't have to always have your attention absorbed continuously by the stream of thinking. Most people don't know that. They are identified with the stream of thinking. They don't know that they can reclaim their consciousness from where it is usually lodged in thinking. And that's a wonderful freedom. But this is the beginning of it, is to show somebody, listen. As I mentioned the other day, Jesus used the example of the master is coming home at night, and you have to be awake to know when he's coming, because he may be very quiet. That's a parable used by Jesus. Why does he say that? Some people misinterpret it to think he's talking about the end of the world. Well, why would he talk about, why do you have to be quiet when the end of the world it comes, whether you're quiet or not? So you're listening, it's a different state of consciousness. You could do the same with visual perception. Look very clearly, what is it that you can see? Let's say, so you're out in nature. What is it that you can see over there? That in the distance? What could that be? And then you're asking that person to enter a different state of consciousness, to stop thinking and putting all attention into visual perception. And they would go. And until they find an interpretation and know what it is they're looking at, they are not thinking. So to look at something unusual is very helpful, because when you can't interpret it, there's no thought yet. So if you see a UFO, then you would for a while you would go, So it might stop your mind for a while until you say, oh, now I know what it is. It's a UFO, which is of course a contradiction in terms, because UFO means it's unidentified, so you don't know what it is. But very often the mind, by finding a word for something, seems that now you know. This is how a lot of mental knowledge operates for it. It's, oh, okay.